Can I help you with anything else today?
Don't you feel silly?
Why are you talking to my kid?
Let me in! No.
I feel like a lot of what I have to say about this movie got lost in translation over text.
I don't think so.
So let me say it right here, black and white with all the nuances here. LongLegs as a movie on its own, 6.5. Not the best, not the worst. I like the aesthetic. I think the LongLegs guy is scary. I think Nicolas Cage is great. I like the references to like the demons and the satanic. I like that. Right, 6.5 base movie, right? But as an experience, all right? But as everything,
right.
looking at it from a whole, hold on. Looking at it from all angles with the storyline that comes before it, the internet arg that was done, that goes into a lot of the lore of the movie. With all that taken into account, that boosts it up to a 7.5. Closer to 8. Now look, I understand the movie's faults. That's why I think it's a 6.5 base movie. That rating is alone. That's a rating. You put that away. You put it away. But when looking at everything it has to offer, not only just the movie, but that kind of like everything they wanted to put in, but they didn't, as an experience as an online alternate reality game that was actually pretty good in terms of like Reddit args go, then that bumps it up a point. I don't see what's wrong with having 2 scores. When you realize the fault for one movie and you realize it, I'm not blind to it. I see it. It's not the perfect movie. It's clearly a Silence of the Lambs clone. I get that. Absolutely. And I rate it accordingly. But with all the other material that everybody else put into it, all the work that they've done, I feel like it'd be a disservice just to ignore that. So that's why I give it 2 scores instead of 1. Now, if it was Oppenheimer, where there wasn't really that much marketing for it, well, when I say marketing, I mean like alternate reality stuff, anything IRL, anything nothing to do with forms, a standalone film. That gets 1 score. Oppenheimer's a 9.8 for me. But with LongLegs, it's different because there's 2 things to go off of.
The amount of cope.
There's no way you're going to say I'm coping.
I want you to look at Destiny, the game, right? When Destiny came out, one of the things people hated about Destiny was the story. Destiny didn't really have that many characters that were interesting and not that much backstory in the game. There was this thing called the Grimoire, and it had all the stories and all the lore you could ever want, but it wasn't in the game. So when our reviewers reviewed the game, they made it a point to say that that stuff wasn't in the game and was not included in their score of the game. So when you're reviewing the movie, you just review the movie. If you want to review the experience or the LongLegs, I mean, I'm just going to use the word universe, even though it's not like a cinematic universe, but that's what you would be reviewing if you're including those elements. Whereas you need to just look at the movie as it is. Nothing else. The movie stands on its own. It is its own piece of art. And it is atrocious. There's no style. Don't get me wrong. You have the artsy shots and the Polaroid aspect ratio, and you have the cold, kind of heartless color grading throughout. That's it. There's no change. It is, don't get me wrong, there is a place for consistency in a film like that, but I felt like it was ridiculously consistent in a bad way, to the point where there was no flair or interest. The only thing I really remember that I thought was really well done was throughout the movie, there are shots that leave you feeling exposed. Like the shot over someone's shoulder showing a doorway, or the shot showing a window, or the guard hearing noises outside the house. But once you look past that, the film just has so much more flaws than things going for it. And I remember you saying, like, she's in training. She's not. She's an FBI agent. She's out of training. Like, she's had all the training that she needs. And when she hears and sees someone outside of her house while she's investigating a serial killer, she doesn't call for backup. She doesn't call it in. She doesn't take notes of his appearance, try and find out what he looks like. She instantly grabs her gun and jumps out of the house in the middle of winter in the dead of night. It makes no sense whatsoever. And then when she comes back into the house, fair enough, he threatened her family in the letter. But before she figured that out, she draws on the letter. She's an FBI agent who's just written onto evidence and contaminated it. It makes zero sense. Even when her partner's killed, once the shot goes off, she doesn't try and secure the area, cover the exit. Instead of calling in any backup, anything at all, she just runs in. If she gets shot, no one's going to find out, because she didn't tell anyone where she was, what she was doing, what happened to her partner. I mean, there's just so many drawbacks to this movie. And add on top of that, it's framed like a horror film. It has all the elements of the horror film, but just none of the follow through. It sets up jump scares without doing jump scares, which I understand is kind of like a stylistic choice to make you feel exposed and increase the tension. But by the second time they do that and you realize there's no jump scare coming, the tension deflates. You know it's not going to happen. Like, I mean, I remember the scene where she's in the library and she hears noises, and that's it. And I was like, okay, nothing's going to happen, because she was in her house and she heard noises and nothing happened. It's set up as a horror film, which for all intents and purposes it falls flat in its face. Set
Absolutely.
up as a film with a certain aesthetic style, it falls flat in its face, because it's just bored. It's kind of like bland and lifeless throughout, which I get is kind of the point, but it doesn't work for the film where there's nothing else to draw interest. I mean, the easiest thing I can compare the style choice to is like GTA 4. GTA 4 had that kind of grim, dark, washed out kind of color to it, but it reflected all the characters, whereas the characters are just so dumb. They're so dumb.
Yeah, and that's where I agree. Look, and I agree with like 80% of what you said. I think it is stylized in its own way. Whether it's your thing or not, I found myself while watching the movie, I liked it. Now look, it doesn't do anything daring. Yeah, it does have these, like you said, the stylistic shots, you know, the lingering shots with the devil in the background. I understand where you're coming from. I really do. In terms of a film that is supposed to have a bunch of these like elements of like supposed to be horror, or supposed to be dealing with these really like this sick, like, you know, Mesopotamian kind of mythology, these demons and these kind of like possession, yeah, it could have been more stylized, and that's where I agree with you, right? And you make a good point about the whole FBI shit. Yeah, I agree with you, and that's why I gave it the rating that I did. The only reason why those ratings are up, right, is because that's just how I feel. I enjoyed as a film where you could just sit down and kind of appreciate what it has to offer.
I think the main reason why I'm judging you so hard on this is because I asked you to put your money where your mouth was. I was in the DVD shop, and it was full price. It wasn't discounted. It was full brand new release price, and I said, put your money where your mouth is. Is this movie good enough to buy at full cost? And you said yes.
That's because I would buy this movie at full cost. I would do it. I would buy this movie at full cost.
Then your scale's off. So 5 is average, 6 is slightly above average, 7 is good, 8 is great, 9 is near perfect, and 10 is perfect. If you're rating this at like around a 6, maybe 6.5, which is what you said, a movie on its own, then you would not buy a little bit above average film at full MSRP.
But if I enjoy it, why not?
But then your rating's off.
But I enjoyed it though.
Right.
I could look. I could rate something a 2 and still enjoy it. The film could be objectively bad. Borderlands the movie could be incredibly bad, but I can enjoy it for my own reason. I can objectively rate a film, but if I enjoy it, I'm going to buy it and purchase it and watch it. That has nothing to do with my ratings. When looking at a movie objectively, and that doesn't carry over into if you want to purchase the movie or not. It can. It absolutely can. But it's not a deciding factor, right? The Batman movie from the 1960s, yeah? The one with Adam West. That movie sucks! That movie's terrible. But I like it. I love that movie. It's free on YouTube. I watch it from time to time. It's a good movie. Some days you just don't know what to do to get rid of a bomb. Like, it's so, like, cheesy and funny and corny. That movie is at best a 3. But I enjoy it. So I will purchase it. I understand not everyone's like that.
If you enjoy it, then why is your personal rating so low?
Because that's the objectiveness about it. The rating is what I feel about the movie on a rubric level. A movie that has imperfections, yes. A movie that can do things better, yes. A movie that was mismarketed, yes. But if I enjoy it, I enjoy it. I can separate those two things. You understand what I'm saying? I can look at stuff objectively, and I could look for only the good stuff, and that could also affect my rating. But that would be biased. If I understand the flaws of the movie and recognize them like I do, and rate it to what I feel like is
like,
what it's
when
worth.
It comes to ratings, you're supposed to give your own rating, not an object. Like we're not movie critics. So what's your personal rating of LongLegs?
6.5. That's my personal rating of LongLegs. But the thing is, it's different with this movie though, because there's more. No. Look. What you're doing is you are combining those two, and you're taking those two pieces of rating as one. Don't do that, because the two ratings that I have for this movie should be treated as separate, because the average person is going to rate this movie how they're going to rate it. They're not going to rate it a 7. They're not going to rate it a 8. I'm most going to rate it a 6, 5 or 6. Yeah.
Well,
but for the people who do enjoy this movie, who want to dive deeper into the lore, that ties into the movie, then it's a good experience.
The outside things on its own not including the movie at all. The outside the movie stuff gets its own rating. The movie gets its own rating. What you're doing is giving the movie a rating and then giving the movie plus the other things a rating. It should be separated.
Only if the supporting material doesn't have No, this is not cope. This is not cope. Because if I rate just the stuff that's provided, it wouldn't make any sense because it's tied into the movie. If I rate, look, if I
of the movie, not the movie, because it's not in the movie.
It's also it's look at it as like an appendix to an essay. It's supporting information for the movie that you don't have to read, but if you want a better understanding of the essay, you will read the appendix and you will see that a lot of the stuff there makes sense. And that's how internet args really go. Look, you're gonna cringe so fucking hard when I make this reference. You know where it's going, right? Five Nights at Freddy's. Now look,
Okay, go off, sis.
you could say, right, the base games are bland. They're very simple. They're effective, but they're pretty bland. Could you say that there could have been more in-depth game mechanics? Sure. Could you say the graphics could have been better? Yeah. But when you read about it, when you dive into the lore and you play the game again, it changes the way you perceive the game. That changes the way you experience it because now you have context. Now you have things you could piece together. Now you have things you could be like, oh, that's why this is like this. That makes sense now. I understand where you're coming from, where you have to rate it separate. But if I do that, then the rating for the outside content would be worse because it has nothing to connect to.
No, you rate how well it's done.
And it's done well.
Look at how well that's executed. Don't give the game plus that a rating. You give a rating on how the devs have done the lore of the game. That's different.
And that's why I gave it 2.
So you give the movie 1 rating and you rate how the directors of the movie executed the ARG. You don't do the movie and the movie plus the ARG. Now, when you rate it like that, it doesn't mean that you're just looking at it on its own and pretending the movie doesn't exist. You're just not including the movie in that rating. It's how well they executed the information outside of it. Same with the game. You can rate the lore of a game separate to the game itself. You don't rate the game and then rate the game plus lore.
But if I'm giving an objective score of a movie that is flawed and I recognize it, is there really like a problem with having 2, even 3 scores if there's additional content for it?
No, as long as you don't include the movie in those other 2 scores.
Oh man.
You when you're rating it, you rate it on its own. All I mean is that when you did that second rating, you did it as if it was the movie plus the ARG. Whereas in my opinion, you should rate the ARG on its own, how well it was executed, how much it added to the whole universe. And then the movie separately. Whereas what you were saying was the movie plus the ARG is that rating.
I understand where you're coming from. You want to rate the quality of 2 things independently of each other. Where I kind of have qualms with that is I don't see a problem in having 2 scores for one movie when taking other supplementary material for it. I don't see a problem with that. I could have 3 scores for one movie if there's enough content for it. There's nothing wrong with that.
Easiest way I can put it is this, right? You order chips from a restaurant and you get a side of sriracha sauce. The chips on their own are absolutely atrocious. They're the worst things you've ever eaten. But the sriracha is the complete opposite. It's the best thing you've ever had. So when you combine your scores of that, you would give it like a 5. Whereas in reality, the chips were a 0 and the sriracha was a 10. It says more about the sriracha than it does the chips. But that's why you should separate them, because someone else looking at that will think that experience altogether is a 5 when it's not. It can complement the original piece of art. That's fine.
Yeah.
But it should still be rated separately.
Okay, then let's fix this right now. I've gone through all the material from the ARG. So I'm gonna fix this by having 3 scores for this movie. I'm gonna have an objective score of the movie. I'm gonna have how they executed the ARG and how complete that is in its own thing. And I'm just gonna combine it because I can. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like you said before, we're not critics. With that information, movie gets a 6.5. For internet args go, I give it a 7. I'm still sticking by my 6.5. Combined, probably, 6.5. But that's what happens. It complicates shit. If I
No, it
had,
doesn't.
look,
you just say the movie on its own isn't the best. You know, it's about a 6, maybe a 6.5. But if you look further into the details, the directors really executed lore around it very well. You know, I would even give the lore around it maybe a 7. That's it. And the comfort. That's it.
Because at the end of the day, someone out there thinks this movie is a 10 out of 10. Let's put that out there. Somebody think there are people who think that, and I say they're wrong. You say they're wrong.
Okay, let me concede a point. There are points where what you're doing makes sense, but movies and lore I think should be separated. Bear in mind, I
So
understand when I say lore, you're talking about an ARG. I understand it's different, but I'm just going to say lore anyways. 'cause
Yeah.
The outside details of a movie that aren't in, like it's not in the movie.
And I have those reservations put to the side and have one correct
you rate the side
score for
piece.
the movie.
You rate the side piece and you rate the movie. 2 separate ratings. Because it's not in the movie. Me, you have to admit, my way just makes more sense.
I don't think it does. I don't think it does, honestly. I understand where you're coming from.
No, you don't.
Two independent things. Movie here, lore here, separate.
Yeah, and I'm saying there's a place.
Yes.
There's a place for one. There's a place for the other. If you were rating a movie and it had a soundtrack, then you could combine them. You could also have a separate. You could rate the movie. So the movie soundtrack could be amazing. It could be shit, and that would factor into your movie score because guess what? It's in the fucking movie. But if the directors came out with a soundtrack of songs that they were considering for the movie but didn't make it in, you would rate that on its own because it's not in the movie, and then you would rate the movie.
Sorry, I don't agree. Because the way I think about it, yeah, it's
material that adds on to the experience.
Yeah, but it's in a way that it changed my perception of the movie when I had all that context and watched it again. And I feel like it would just kind of be unfair to not consider it when clearly a lot of work has been. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie to you. It's a lot of shit. It's a lot of stuff.
And there's one issue I have with it. It's not in the movie. But it's not in the movie.
Look, and I understand that part. Yes, I do, brother in Christ. I understand that point. It's not in the movie, don't rate it. Simple, binary, like that, yeah? But I don't view it like that. You can rate it like that. At the end of the day, I know you're going to walk away from this saying you're right. I'm going to walk away saying I'm right. It's something that we're not going to agree on. And that's fine. Because at the end of the day, we're not fucking critics.
If you were the average person, or if you were a movie critic, which side do you think people would take?
What do you mean? Oh, like the average person that goes to the movie theater, watches this movie?
Say you're a movie critic, right? What side would you think they would take? Would they agree with me or agree with you?
Depends on the critic, bro.
I mean, you're not wrong.
It really does. There are people because there are critics who will take my side and critics who will take your side. The critics who are purists, who are by the book, will agree with you. The people who want to view it as a complete work in one standalone experience, we either have an average score of 2 or a combined score of 1. Now, are those two necessarily wrong?
What about the average person?
The average person will obviously go with you because they're looking at it from what it has to offer, which is fine because I do the same thing. I gave it 2 scores. What's wrong with that? Like, I don't understand. Like, it's not like I'm the god defending this movie. Like, it's the I'm not. I understand the flaws. It's just a movie that I enjoy because I enjoy what it does correctly.
The reason we're bumping heads right now, the semantical argument of rating 2 things together, that's
Yes.
the entire crux of it.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'm right.
And it's your prerogative to feel like that because at the end of the day, I know I'm right. It's one of those things we have to disagree on this one.
You fell off.
We have to disagree on this one.